That doesn't sound like a roaring success.
And so far, all those people have been proved wrong.
Yes, that's our very own melted candle, Lord Frost of Ollington. Yes, the very same Lord Frost who ripped to shreds that crappy Brexit deal negotiated by that bumbling, incompetent David Frost. So a man who knows of what he speaks, eh? Well, he was at the Business and Trade Committee meeting on the 23rd of April where they were discussing export-led growth with an expert, but we'll get to him later.
Lord Frost, perhaps I could begin with you. Are you pleased with the way trade has progressed since Brexit?
Well, yes, I think is the short answer, because I think all those who predicted a dramatic change in our trade and a dramatic turn for the worse have been proved wrong.
Do you now have the lowest trade openness in the G7?
Well, we always have had relatively low trade openness because of the size of our economy and structural factors. The issue is how much has it changed as a result of Brexit, and it hasn't really changed significantly at all.
I'm looking at this excellent report from UK and Changing Europe. I don't know what you make of them. They seem a pretty good crowd to me. But their last trade monitor shows that trade openness has fallen to levels last seen in 2017. That doesn't sound like a roaring success.
Well, these levels fluctuate up and down, and I repeat, the issue is not trade openness. The issue is, has there been the kind of significant change in trade levels that's been predicted by so many, including UK and a changing Europe, and so far all those people have been proved wrong.
Yeah, well, that's enough of the Brexit fantasy of being buccaneer and plucky Barretts. Also, I couldn't do with that smug grin on that melted candle's face as well. But anyway, let's watch the expert dealing with Brexit reality. Yes, David Hennig, Director of the UK Trade Policy Project European Centre for International Political Economy, where Tory MP Julie Marsden asked him this question.
Very much, Chair. David, you've written that trade agreements are not a good fit for the UK in tackling trade barriers. For the benefit of the committee, could you expand a little on that and perhaps also explain what trade policy tools the government should be prioritising instead?
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation to appear here. Very much, as Lord Frost has already mentioned, about services. The UK, 50% of our trade, or perhaps more indeed, is in services. Free trade agreements actually do very little for services. Similarly, most modern trade barriers now are regulatory in nature. They're about companies having to, and companies after all are who does all of this trade. We often talk about government actions are all that matters. It's actually companies that do most of the trade. They face regulatory barriers from different regulations. Those are very difficult to bind in free trade agreements, and in fact we haven't really done so in free trade agreements we've signed to date because countries are very reluctant to sign away their rights to set future regulations. In that sense, free trade agreements, which are more about tariff reduction, where you're a major commodity producer, well, we're not in most areas a major commodity producer. So we might get a tariff reduction in India, say, on Scotch whisky. Well, that would be worth something. But in general, for most of the things that we would be looking to export more of, for example, various services, you could also look at, say, defence manufacturing. These aren't areas where tariffs are the main, or indeed at all the issue. Unfortunately, where that leaves you is that there's no one single tool that can do this for you. And I know we look for the magic bullet post-Brexit. What's the single thing we can do that will change everything? I'm afraid there isn't. I'm afraid that what you have to do is do an awful lot of things right. You have to be talking to a lot of countries about all of these barriers. You have to be doing, for example, what was, I think, a successful agreement with Switzerland on mutual recognition of financial services. We also need, and I think Lord Frost was absolutely right here, to look at the domestic agenda. Now, we may have different suggestions of what we think would make a difference on the domestic agenda, but ensuring that we're set up to support exporters in our domestic policy choices, I think is hugely important as well, and an often overlooked part of the trade policy agenda.
Well, I did feel you did deserve to hear a bit of Brexit reality from an expert, after listening to the absolute drivel from the melted candle himself, Lord Frost. But I do agree with Lord Frost about one thing, though. That agreement negotiated by that bell-tap David Frost was absolute pants, wasn't it? Maybe Spaffer should have got Lord Frost to do it instead, eh? But anyway, what do you guys think? Let me know down below and I shall bid you farewell and take care, my friends.